This week, in fact, I'll just drag it up. Here it is. On Monday morning, Health New Zealand contacted me with a headline, "Book now to get your free COVID vaccine." And it said, if you're over the age of 65, which I'm assuming they know, but it's not social media that would give them that information, it's my simple health records, which is why I guess they've contacted me. Keeping up to date with your vaccinations remains one of the best things that you can do to protect yourself and your whānau from serious illness or being admitted to hospital due to COVID. You can have the latest COVID vaccine if it's been 6 months since your last one, either vaccine or you've had a positive test, and then it tells me where I can go and get it, or I could even book it online. While I'm there, it suggests to me, it's a great time to check up whether you're up to date with all your immunisations, including flu, whooping cough, and your 2 doses of the measles vaccine. With a whooping cough epidemic in New Zealand, I would hardly call it an epidemic, and measles on the rise globally, talk to your vaccinator about how you can stay protected from these serious diseases. Protect yourself and your whānau this winter, it implores me. Well, to check out what sort of danger I'm really in and whether or not we need to take any of these seriously anymore, given that I am well over getting COVID jabs because I've had COVID and it's not killing me, we are talking to Helen Petousis-Harris, Professor Helen Petousis-Harris, the co-director of Global Vaccine Data Network. Helen, welcome to the show. Lovely to have you on.
Hi, Michael.
I'm not going to get a COVID vaccine because I've had COVID twice and it was less damaging and dangerous to me than the flu. So is my experience fairly common, do you think, throughout New Zealand?
Yeah, I think it probably is. I think most people, I think, have had both COVID and a jab or 2 or 5 or 6 or something. And so most of us don't get, excessively ill. I think definitely, though, when you stand back and you look across the population, if you're over 65, have one of these many health conditions, etc., that we hear about, a recent up-to-date dose can cut your risk of hospitalisation and death by 70%. Now, when you think, well, 7% of what, of course, because far fewer people are getting seriously ill now than there were. But it still makes a big difference for the period after you've received the dose, say for the first, few months, and then, of course, it wanes. So if you think of it like a seatbelt, perhaps, and it doesn't stop the car crash, but it might stop you going through the window.
Okay, but I'm just had, as I said to you, 2 doses of COVID, and I've had the jabs, and vaccine didn't help me not get it. I had been inoculated and shouldn't have, or vaccinated and shouldn't have, but I did. And as I said, I've had those 2 doses. I'm relatively fit and healthy. I don't need it, surely. I mean, obviously, I don't need it. If I've had 2 doses of COVID and I didn't end up going through the windscreen.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. It's a numbers game, right? It's purely a numbers game, I guess. And while most people, first of all, I think it's not going to stop you getting infected after the first few weeks. It might for a while, and then it does wane. Then it'll protect against severe disease if you were going to be unlucky enough to get that, and then finally the protection against any sort of death. People still, there's people now in hospital because of COVID, not just with, but because of COVID, and there's still a steady trickle of deaths as a result directly of COVID. That's true of the flu
too. Listen, can I just share an experience with you that's really even, it sort of amazed me. I have a 93-year-old mother-in-law. She broke her arm in a fall. She took herself off, or was taken off, to A&E in Dunedin Hospital, fit and healthy, except for the fact that she'd broken her arm in the fall. Guess what she caught? Yeah, you're right. COVID. At the hospital. And I have to say, the irony of that appealed to me, but she didn't die of it. And she was unwell, but no more than she would have been if she had the flu. But it seems that sometimes somebody else pointed out to me that they'd also, when I recounted that story, had also said that's exactly where they caught COVID. They didn't have COVID, but as soon as they went to the hospital, they caught it. Are hospitals mutating or agitating COVID at the moment, Helen?
I think hospitals have always been a good place to catch something. I mean, it's full of sick people and visitors and so on. I remember I've got an example watching, it was in a high dependency unit and somebody had an infection and everybody was suiting up just for that person. But as soon as they came out and as soon as the person was gone, it all sort of fell away again. And I thought, well, if that was, there's lots of infections that could have hung around a bit longer. So it was a bit lax, I have to say. But I think that's been not, it's always been a place where you might pick something up that you didn't go in with, which is, always a risk.
Problematic, I would say. Yes, indeed. Listen, the other thing is I've always got the idea that the vaccine was okay for those over the age of, I don't know, perhaps my mother-in-law's age. And it might reduce, as you say, some of the severity of the symptoms. It won't necessarily protect them from all of them. The last time we had this conversation, about 2 years ago, was who would get the vaccine now? And you said, I think you used your son, who was in his early 20s at the time, as an example. I'm not sure I would give him a vaccine now. Given the risks and the reward, the reward wasn't worth the risk. Would that still be your advice now?
Yeah, I think it's such a good question and one I think about quite a lot. I think the risks of serious adverse event are, of course, very, very low. One of the things that I sort of really worry about is long COVID, because that's really a bit of a shit of a thing. And certainly it's less likely if somebody has, a reasonably up-to-date vaccination. So that's another aspect, because, of course, it's not all sort of death and mayhem for most of us, but long COVID is a sort of a reality. So that is a thought. I don't know. I don't think I've got a good answer for that. I think it is fairly sort of individual. Of course, these young people have been exposed over and over again. I don't think I've got an answer.
Okay, so, and if you don't have an answer, Helen, and you're the expert, how do the rest of us cope?
I think it's a little bit like an annual flu. It's a bit like an annual flu. I think perhaps looking at it like that, an annual flu vaccine, which, and that's a very average, from year to year, very average vaccine, if you like. But it makes a big difference at the population level, and it certainly affects spread. Now, I know we don't talk about the COVID vaccine as something that really stops a lot of the spread, but it does actually make a big difference when you are sort of vaccinating a number of people. It does dampen it down a bit. So, in a sense, that's a useful aspect as well. So if I was, say, a really young person like I am, of course, and about to go off travelling, I think I'd get a shot. I'd be up to date shot, because I actually don't want it ruining my day. Okay. And I'm going to be among lots of people.
Next issue, and that relates to the flu. I've been offered, I've just read out the flu jab as well. And some years I do and some years I don't. And unfortunately, again, the last time I had a flu jab, I got the flu and I seemed to suffer just as much. I guess it was a different virus than the one I was vaccinated against. They are historic by nature. Again, advice would usually be go and get it if you're of a certain age. Is that right? Or should everybody be getting?
Yeah,
flu
definitely.
jab?
Definitely. I think the advantages far outweigh disadvantages. There's a lot of interest around this, probably more so because, of course, influenza is a ever-present pandemic threat, and new
Well, what are the strains out there this
new
year? Are they
variations
any worse
coming in.
than they have been? Remember, we had that really
Yeah,
severe
it
outbreak of
varies by
flu.
year.
It does it? So
It
what's it like
varies
this
by
year?
year. Actually, I don't know, but some years are pretty mild. We have a mild flu season. Some are real bangers. The vaccine on any given year, it's plus or minus 50% protective. So by
It's a big
vaccine
strange,
standards,
isn't it?
that's
Yeah.
very average. And of course, lots of work going on to try to improve that. But of course, the combination of flu drifting all the time and changing is highly problematic. But when you stand back and look at using the flu vaccine across the population, it keeps tens of thousands of people from getting sick. The numbers are huge because so many more people actually get infected and spread it than we realise, especially the really young ones. Now, I mean, I think the dilemma is more there with the younger people because they're not as at greater risk of having severe complications from influenza, but they're the ones that are doing the super spreading. They shed it for longer, etc.